You're listening to the Real Life Podcast. We're an interactive show which tackles everything life sciences from conservation biology to zoology and botany.
Our podcast is where environmental awareness meets fun and chatter.
So come and listen to us as real life scientists tackle real life topics. Our guest today is a well-rounded individual who boasts of great accomplishment as an environmental scientist and consultant, a developmental project manager, an experienced educator, an entrepreneur, and a business development consultant.
And like many of our previous guests, she also has a degree from UE. She has her BSc in marine biology and international relations. She has extensive certification in project management, and she's currently pursuing her MPhil in environmental biology.
She serves in many leadership positions, such as a coordinator of the Common Youth Climate Change Network, and is the founder and managing director of eBiome.
She also received several awards, including the Governor General's Award for Excellence in 2015 and the Prime Minister's Youth Award for Excellence in Community Service in 2017.
So please help us welcome this multi-talented guest, Miss Leneka Rhoden. Hi, Leneka.
Hi.
Hi, Leneka. I think I remember you from our labs and so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to be able to have a conversation.
Yeah,
Definitely.
those were fun memories.
So we like to start with a bunch of warm-up questions just to get everybody, conversating, having a nice chill conversation. So what is your favorite thing to do in the little free time that you have, because you are so involved with so many things?
Right. So, my favorite thing to do is actually watch Netflix.
Oh, same.
So, yeah, I recently watched the series Bridgerton. Amazing stuff. Yeah, and I was drawn to Greenleaf, and wow, I think I've watched almost all the series on Netflix, but yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
It just takes me into another world, when you need that release, that recreation, Netflix is that place to go for me.
Trust, we understand, because being in the department, the little free time you do, you need that stress relief. I completely understand.
Definitely, especially if it's a movie with the beat, something to just get you to relax. And I know that being in the Department of Life Sciences at U, it can be hectic, especially with the labs and the number of labs that we have in a week. Your
Yeah.
brain needs that rest period. So I'm drawn to a series for hours, and I don't take any calls, I don't take any meetings, nothing at all. I'm just into my Netflix.
Wow. Okay. Love that. So our next warm-up question. Is there any specific year or era that you loved and would want to go back to, and why?
Well, I think I'm a bit too young for this question.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, because I've only been on the earth for 23 years, and I think 2020 was a pretty interesting year. So I might be the odd one to say that I would go back to 2020. I know it was a hard year for many, but we cannot say that we didn't learn something in that year. Many people learned the most lessons in 2020. People learned how to pivot. Many businesses learned how to pivot. People learned how to take advantage of technology. So it's the first year that I've seen the world appreciate science and technology. They were relying on the scientists for developing the vaccine or coming up with some solution for COVID-19. I've seen where people are using hand sanitizers, and I'm seeing things that I thought should have been done before. Like, we didn't need a pandemic to say, hey, you needed to have been cleaner. You needed to have been
Definitely.
washing your hands regularly. You needed to have, sanitize the area if somebody used it. You go into a hairdresser, a salon, and they're spraying the chair with alcohol. I think
Mm-hmm.
that should have been something that, was done before. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we thank God for COVID in that sense.
in that sense, yes. And
In
I
that
mean,
sense, definitely.
it was nice at first to be able to stay home, and then we were all watching Netflix. That's when we got a lot more time for Netflix. And
Oh yes.
then
Mm-hmm.
for students in school, they had no school. I'm sure many of us were rejoicing, yes, a break, finally a break. But I mean, there was the sad turn of events where the no more socialization, the physical contact, and many of us realize how important those days, those moments were when we could have gathered together and shared laughter, a game, or anything of that sort.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. And I love that you mentioned that too, because I agree with you in that we could have definitely been way more sanitary
Yes,
before the pandemic. Basic things like cleaning the counter at like grocery stores, or
yes,
cleaning off the shelves and stuff like that. They could have done that from way before COVID, and it's kind of sad in that regard that we didn't realize these things until COVID, especially when they had to do things like especially in like Coronation Market, where people are just refusing to follow protocols, and then you realize, wow, some of the stuff that has been happening for so long in our country were never sanitary and were never okay, and now we have to adjust our culture. Hey guys, it's Maya here, and I'm here to talk to you guys about Anchor. So, if you didn't already know about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, and let me explain why. So, first of all, it is free. That is $0.00 USD JMD wherever in the world you are. And there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor distributes your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, almost anywhere that there is a podcast. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. We here at the Real Life Podcast use Anchor to record and distribute our podcast. So download the free Anchor app and go to anchor.fm to get started. My question really is, what really fueled your passion for marine biology?
uh, what fueled my passion for marine biology? So I would say, well, the first thing that comes to mind is the opportunity. So you always want to enter into a field that is not too saturated, that there's an
Mm,
opportunity to either invent something or to tap into an area that isn't too competitive. Not that competition is bad, but you want to lead the way in a sense. And I know that marine biology, even though Jamaica is a small island surrounded by the lovely Caribbean Sea, many of the people in our population, majority of our population, they can't swim. And yeah, so, and if they can't swim, and that's not even the biggest issue. I know that when you think about the fact that overfishing has been a problem for so long, and the parrotfish, like the government has been very slow to put a ban on the fishing of parrotfish, and there are so
Mhm.
many other things. There are so many animals and plants left to be discovered in the Caribbean Sea. So when you really look at the bigger picture, which is the opportunity in the field of marine biology, there's a
Yeah,
lot more space for marine biologists.
I get that.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
you
I
always want
understand.
to be a leader, it sounds.
Yeah.
in a sense, I really, the opportunity is there, and it's just to tap into the opportunity. You have to go where the opportunity is. And it's
Mhm.
it's weird that I did marine biology because I'm actually afraid of fish. But I'm
What?
yeah, I do. Oh my God. I wouldn't survive a fish coming near me or touching me if I'm actually a
Great.
certified diver, but
Yes, we saw
the
that.
good news
Yeah, we
is
saw.
when you are down there, when you're under the water and you're in their environment, they actually just run or they don't even pay you any mind. So as long as you're not going in their direction, they're not coming in yours.
Hmm.
Interesting.
All right. Nice way to cope.
Yeah.
Earlier, you had mentioned that COVID has made us really adapt some new things into our habits, such as sanitization and so. But in terms of conservation and environmental stuff, realistically, where what do you think we can change in the next 5 years in our country, in Jamaica, to get better?
Okay, so I think the issue in Jamaica is it's more related to policy and the lack of
Mm,
implementation of such. So
Definitely.
Jamaica is signatory to a number of environment conventions. So these conventions are internationally signed. Everybody signed on to them, like the Paris Agreement. Everybody know about that one for climate change.
right.
And so when you sign on to these conventions, there are policies that you are projects that you're expected to execute. There are goals and objectives that you're expected to meet. And in order for you to meet those goals and objectives, of course, you have to ensure that the agencies are carrying out projects to help you to meet those goals and objectives. It can be as simple as running a campaign to reduce the number of backyard, what do you call it? Like when you light a fire in your house or in your yard, you know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think,
Burning of,
yeah,
yeah.
so Jamaica, especially when it comes on to the marine space, the ships that come into our water, they're not as monitored as they should be. And there are a number of other examples where it is that Jamaica failed, or I'm not blaming the country on a whole, I'm just saying like we continuously put the environment on a back burner. We're of the
Yeah.
belief that if it is that we do this development here and we destroy whichever habitat and it causes whatever destruction it's going to cause, that the environment will forgive us and spare us of whatever
Right.
disaster is to come.
Mm-hmm.
But these
Definitely.
actions are irreversible. When you
Mm-hmm.
remove all of the mangrove from our coastline, if a hurricane is to come, there's no way that you're going to be able to replant all of those mangroves and they regrow in a reasonable time span in order to protect
So
your
give to be
coastline.
effective to hurricanes.
Right, so we will be susceptible to a number of natural disasters, and it's always when something comes or something hits that we remember
Hmm.
that the environment, we're not good stewards of the environment. And so it's
Yeah.
it's really an issue of to raise the awareness to the people, and you'll be surprised to know how many community members actually, have a general understanding of the importance of not doing certain things, but because they're not seeing it on their TV as much as they're seeing a digital or a flow commercial, right? So we need to try to incorporate it in our lifestyle. Even, for yourselves, do not throw away your plastic containers, your plastic bottles. Put them where they're supposed to go. Ensure that the recycling partners of Jamaica get those plastic bottles, because it's the destruction is so. The
Mm-hmm.
fish are already eating microplastics. And I'm sure we're
Yes.
still enjoying ourselves at Gloria's, while all of these
Mm,
microplastics that we can't even see in the fish that we're eating at Gloria's are bioaccumulating in our bodies. And these can
mm.
lead to cancer and other serious illnesses. And all of these things are interconnected. So if Jamaica really wants to cut costs, they would seriously take a look at all the sectors that are affected. Because when people get sick
Wow.
and get cancer, is the hospital them
Mhm.
reach. And Jamaica's
Yep,
hospital need all kind of funding. They need more beds. They
definitely.
cannot cater to all of these things. So, and the gullies are being clogged with all of this rubbish. And I mean, there's so
Mhm.
much to do. And so I think,
All of them
yeah,
just interconnected. If we just change one, it will cause a ripple effect.
it
Perfect,
would.
definitely.
It would. I think every organization should somehow be responsible to execute at least one environment related project. It can be as simple as sweeping up the street, taking up a plastic bottle, like anything at all.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
that's actually a great
Yeah, it
idea.
should. And these are policies that exist in other countries. So it's not necessarily
Yeah.
about reinventing the wheel, because the same conventions that Jamaica signed on to, they have these
Mm-hmm.
listed as suggested policies to incorporate, and it's just for Jamaica to incorporate these policies and start putting the environment um, on the list of priorities. That's all we ask, just on the list of priorities at least.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I would love to see where the environment is no longer a marketing campaign for government bodies, but a thing that people actually implement. So don't say or put on your manifesto, we are going to create or have policies that are better for the environment and then not do it.
Yeah,
If you're going to promise it, follow through on
that
it.
is so true.
Definitely.
And many people look at, so climate change is a big issue. And I can't be on the
Hmm.
real life podcast and don't mention climate change.
We have
I'm
2 episodes on climate change. We
That's the
have to.
buzzword these days.
You.
Yeah, so climate change is real. At one
Mm-hmm.
point, I was thinking, but this thing is natural though, because when I was in prep school, I learned that the climate must change every 30 years. Do you
Mm-hmm.
guys remember
Mm,
learning that? Like the difference between weather and
Yeah.
climate is that climate changes over a long period of
long term.
time.
Right.
So climate change is somewhat natural. But the issue with climate change, or the reason why there's such a focus on climate change, is because it's changing at a faster pattern. So
Mm-hmm.
we're used to the climate changing at a very slow pace, but it has accelerated to the point where there are a number of extremes. So for example, in the Caribbean, we're having, definitely, especially if it's a movie with the beach, something to just get you to relax. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that being in the Department of Life Sciences at you, it can be hectic, especially with the labs and the number of labs that we have in a week. Your
Yeah.
brain needs that rest period. So I'm drawn to a series for hours, and I don't take any calls, I don't take any meetings, nothing at all. I'm just into my Netflix.
Wow. Okay. Love that. So, our next warm up question: is there any specific year or era that you loved and would want to go back to, and why?
Well, I think I'm a bit too young for this question.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, because I've only been on the earth for 23 years, and I
Oh,
think
really?
2020 was a pretty interesting year. So I might be the odd one to say that I would go back to 2020. Um, I know it was a hard year for many, but we cannot say that we didn't learn something in that year.
Definitely.
Many people learned the most lessons in 2020. People
Mm-hmm.
learned how to pivot. Many
Mm,
businesses learned how to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
People learned how to take advantage of technology. So it's the first year that I've seen the world appreciate science and technology. They were relying on the scientists for developing the vaccine or coming up with some solution for COVID-19. I've
Mhm.
seen where people are using hand sanitizers, and I'm seeing things that I thought should have been done before. Like, we didn't need a pandemic to say, hey, you needed to have been cleaner. You needed to have been
Definitely.
washing your hands regularly. You needed to have, you know, sanitize the area if somebody used it. You go into a hairdresser, a salon, and they're spraying the chair with alcohol. I think
Mhm.
that should have been something that, was done before. But yeah,
Yeah, we thank God for COVID in that sense.
in that sense, yes. And
In
I
that
mean,
sense, definitely.
it was nice at first to be able to stay home. And then we were all watching Netflix. That's when we got a lot more time for Netflix. And
Oh yes.
then for students in school, they had no school. I'm sure many of us were rejoicing, yes, a break, finally a break. But I mean, there was the sad turn of events where the no more socialization, the physical contact, and many of us realize how important those days, those moments were when we could have gathered together and shared laughter, a game, or anything of that sort. So you always want to enter into a field that is not too saturated, that there's an
Mm,
opportunity to either invent something or to tap into an area that isn't too competitive. Not that competition is bad, but you want to lead the way in a sense. And I know that marine biology, even though Jamaica is a small island surrounded by the lovely Caribbean Sea, many of the people in our population, majority of our population, they can't swim. And yeah, so, and if they can't swim, and that's not even the biggest issue. I know that when you think about the fact that overfishing has been a problem for so long, and the parrotfish, like, the government has been very slow to put a ban on the fishing of parrotfish. And there are so many other things. There are so many animals and plants left to be discovered in the Caribbean Sea. So when you really look at the bigger picture, which is the opportunity in the field of marine biology, there's a
yeah.
lot more space for marine biologists.
Mm,
Interesting.
all right. Nice way to cope.
Yeah.
Earlier, you had mentioned that COVID has made us really adapt some new things into our habits, such as sanitization and so. But in terms of conservation and environmental stuff, realistically, what do you think we can change in the next 5 years in our country, in Jamaica, to get better?
Okay, so I think the issue in Jamaica is it's more related to policy and the lack of
Mm,
implementation of such. So
Definitely.
Jamaica is signatory to a number of environment conventions. So these conventions are internationally signed. Everybody signed on to them, like the Paris Agreement. Everybody know about that one for climate change.
right.
And so when you sign on to these conventions, there are policies that you are projects that you're expected to execute. There are goals and objectives that you're expected to meet. And in order for you to meet those goals and objectives, of course, you have to ensure that the agencies are carrying out projects to help you to meet those goals and objectives. It can be as simple as running a campaign to reduce the number of backyard, what do you call it? Like when you light a fire in your house or in your yard, you know.
Right.
And so I think,
Burning of, yeah.
so Jamaica, especially when it comes on to the marine space, the ships that come into our water, they're not as monitored as they should be. And there are a number of other examples where it is that Jamaica failed, or I'm not blaming the country on a whole, I'm just saying, like, we continuously put the environment on a back burner. We're of the
Yeah.
belief that if it is that we do this development here and we destroy whichever habitat and it causes whatever destruction it's going to cause, that the environment will forgive us and spare us of whatever
Right.
disaster is to come.
Mm-hmm.
But these
Definitely.
actions are irreversible. When you
Mm-hmm.
remove all of the mangrove from our coastline, if a hurricane is to come, there's no way that you're going to be able to replant all of those mangroves and they regrow in a reasonable time span in order to protect
So
your
it would be
coastline.
hurricanes.
Right, so we will be susceptible to a number of natural disasters, and it's always when something comes or something hits that we remember
Mm-hmm.
that the environment, we're not good stewards of the environment. And so
Yeah.
it's really an issue of to raise the awareness to the people, and you'll be surprised to know how many community members actually, have a general understanding of the importance of not doing certain things, but because they're not seeing it on their TV as much as they're seeing a digital or a flow commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. So we need to try to incorporate it in our lifestyle. Even, for yourselves, do not throw away your plastic containers, your plastic bottles. Put them where they're supposed to go. Ensure that the recycling partners of Jamaica get those plastic bottles, because it's the destruction is so irreversible. Longer dry seasons, so extensive droughts, and when there is rainfall, there is rainfall, like
Rain.
terrible rainfall. It's all the way to the other end of the curve. If there
Mm-hmm.
is
Road
to
mashup.
be a hurricane, it is nothing less than a category 5,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, and then the very opposite is happening in other parts of the world. So other parts of the world that would be used to the drought, they're getting extensive days of rainfall. And when this happens, it disrupts the environment. So the natural ecosystems that would exist in Jamaica and other parts of the world, that's disrupted. So animals and the different plants that would exist there, they can no longer survive because they can't manage these harsh environment conditions. And we know how ecosystems work. Every organism is basically interdependent on, or is basically dependent on the other, whether it is for
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
food
Definitely.
or, I don't know, to control their population. I mean, these things are natural,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And there's this international climate activist, and I was listening to her recently. She is Swedish, and she protests. She did a very international protesting. I think a number of people in the US and Canada joined her as well, and Germany, where they stood outside of the parliament, and they stood there for days. So they didn't go to school, they stood there for days. Their classmates joined them as well, and they were advocating for the governments to take climate change seriously. Because if they're not going to take climate
Mm-hmm.
change seriously, it means that they're robbing them of their future. Because if the
Mm-hmm.
world today is destroyed, what will the kids have? And
Mm.
Mm. That's a word.
it is a word, yeah. And
That's a word.
many small islands, you know that there are small islands that are predicted to disappear in the next 10 years, 20 years. And
Yeah.
when they interview
Yeah.
people who live on these small islands, and of course they're disappearing as a result of sea level rise, which is accelerated by the
Right.
fact that the polar ices are melting.
Right.
Right.
So when you interview the people who have lived on these islands all their lives, they're saying, I don't know where I'm going to go if my island should disappear. Where will my future be? Is it that all of us are going to
Yeah.
have to find another country? What about my family? You know, this is where am I
Right.
going to be a
Mm-hmm.
stranger and an immigrant in another person's country? What about my social, emotional well-being? You know, and these are things that we don't necessarily think about because Jamaica is, I mean, we're not going to sink for now. We're quite fine for now.
Mm-hmm. We're one of the biggest islands, so we don't. It's not gonna hit us as hard as it will the Lesser Antilles and other smaller,
Islands,
very
yeah,
tiny islands.
that
Yeah,
is true. But you know,
But we still have to shape up
we do.
so that
definitely,
we stay in our lifeboat longer
definitely. This
than
is
it's predicted right now.
this is the third time we're talking about climate change
It is
on
very
this podcast.
important.
I mean, this is
Yeah,
an issue for life sciences right now.
yeah,
That's a
definitely.
big life issue.
Yeah, it's really something. It's really something that we have to get on. As like we should have been on it from yesterday. And the reality is that we've been reactive to it, and now we need to be
That
proactive
is so true.
because if we remain reactive in the next 10 years, who
The
God
weekend,
God
let's
help
react.
us. Yeah. Definitely. But Lenika, what we want to get into though is so we realize that you are the managing director for eBiome, right? And so I realized that eBiome has these talks or this thing called the blue economy that they talk about sometimes. And I think the listeners are wondering what exactly is the blue economy and how is that manifesting in the Caribbean or in Jamaica right now?
Okay. So the blue economy is basically the economy of the sea. So you're using marine resources for economic gains in a sustainable way. So there are different ways in which you can participate in the blue economy. And one of the best examples would be fishermen. They are a part of the blue economy, for example. They are not the most
Okay.
favored members because when you talk about sustainability, talking about
Right.
utilizing the ocean resources in a sustainable way so that it can serve for future generations, right? And so this is why
Yes.
we're
Benefit
against
self.
overfishing, but fishing can be sustainable. So it is an activity that would come under the blue economy.
So would that also include things like scuba
Definitely
diving
right. Yeah, I
and
was just about to get to the how tourism plays a role in the blue economy, and that would be like your scuba diving, your sightseeing. So, for example, if you're on a boat and you're going out to look at the keys, that's all a part of the blue economy.
okay, and like glass bottom
Yeah,
boats?
anything that
Oh,
has to do with the ocean, even if it is that you are simply looking at it, and you're
okay.
paying to look at the ocean. We're using the ocean to make money. So that is the blue economy.
So you think this blue economy, because as you said earlier, we are an island. Jamaica is an island, and or one of our biggest money makers is tourism. So I think the two just should go hand in hand,
Not
no?
necessarily, not
If
necessarily.
we
So the thing is, the blue economy separates itself because it has high level services. So, for example,
okay,
taking marine plants such as algae to make pharmaceuticals, that's a part of the blue economy.
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Doing something like so say for example you're a scuba diver and you're doing recordings underwater for a Discovery Channel, etc., that would be a part of the blue economy.
I
Underwater
see. So it's
mining. So
diverse.
there are a lot of so there's oil, there are a lot of other minerals that you can mine from the ocean. That would also be a part of the blue economy. So the blue economy, it's not necessarily, even though there are aspects of tourism, there are aspects of fishing, and there are aspects of even agriculture that fall under the blue economy. But the wider umbrella is that these
Right.
are value-added processes, these are technology-driven processes, these are, and there's so many aspects of the blue economy that isn't even here in Jamaica as yet. So, there is so much to do. And I think, the fact that Jamaica is surrounded, and most of the Caribbean islands, they're surrounded by the Caribbean Sea. And I think that speaks to the potential of us taking advantage of what the blue economy has to offer.
Right. That's what I was trying to get at, to say that we can make it into a very sustainable part of our economy, so that like we can market it in such a way that it becomes like, well, I guess if it has so many branches, I'm sure we're already benefiting from
Yeah,
it.
it's just so, for example, for fishing, do you guys know about fish sanctuaries? Right.
Right.
Fish
Yeah.
So yeah,
sanctuaries
there's
would
different
fall under the
sanctuaries. Yeah.
blue economy. So anything that promotes sustainability, because fishermen are allowed to fish in some parts of a fish sanctuary, or they're allowed to fish on the
I see.
outskirts, for example. And they benefit in a sense, because the fish, after the fish, they're able to grow to a suitable size, and then, they can be fished. So the fishermen benefit because the fish wouldn't leave the sanctuary until they're of a certain size, right? And they
And
get
so
more
Yeah.
value
them
for
from
money,
the
because
baby.
otherwise, from that, when you talk about unsustainable fishing, fishermen are going out there and catching baby fish, small fish, teen fish,
Yeah.
Definitely.
like fish that have no flesh on the little bones. So these are reasons why, and I think one of the things, the reason why the blue economy isn't something as big as it ought to be in Jamaica is because it requires a lot of discipline. One, because it has to be sustainable, and a lot of business owners are all about, I need to make money, I need to make money now. And the blue economy is not, even though it's a very lucrative area, because internationally it's estimated to worth around $1 trillion.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That's a lot of
ooh.
that's a lot of millions.
That is all of Jamaica's debt.
Interesting. Interesting statement.
No, I'm just joking.
So there's a lot of potential for the blue economy, and I think one of the areas, for example, that Jamaica needs to look into is building capacity of entrepreneurs, building the capacity of entrepreneurs so that they can effectively take part in the blue economy. I know the Branson Center for Entrepreneurship has done a series of training with existing businesses that operate in the blue economy. And there are quite a few in Jamaica,
Right.
actually. So, for example, Yardi Divers. So, Divers, they offer
Yeah.
scuba diving services. They also offer boat tours around the Port Royal Keys, and things like those. So, for example, when you're on the boat, you're not necessarily disrupting the ecosystem of the mangroves or the seagrasses, the coral reefs, and that is important. That's the important aspect of the blue economy. It is to allow for people to still reap as much benefits as they can from the marine resources, but limiting their physical interactions so that they
interaction.
don't
Yeah.
damage the organisms or disrupt the ecosystems that exist. So it's to build sustainable businesses around these ecosystems. And there's so many ways that you can do that. So mangroves, I know there are certain plant species such as the sea anemone that grows a part of in association with the mangroves. So if you want to make, for example, pharmaceuticals or nutraceuticals, you can capture sea anemones and develop the kind medicines and other things, because sea anemones actually have they have antibodies that can be used to fight cancer. They have what you call it? It's anti-cancer properties and antibiotic properties. And these are, of course,
Interesting.
essential to your medicine, to your medication for cancer or any other ailment.
Mm-hmm.
So, the potential, and there's so much work that needs to be done to support these entrepreneurs as well. For example, entrepreneurs need to know what exists out there. What exactly does the ocean have to offer? We already know the ocean have fish, and we probably know one or two types of fish. But we're not the sea anemones and all the other organisms that exist in the ocean with all of these wonderful properties. Do you mean to tell me that a sea creature can actually cure cancer? So there are a number
Yep.
of things, a number of research areas, and these are the areas that eBiome, that's the focus of eBiome in terms of tapping into the research aspect. And we also have a project that we're working on to do video recordings of the different interesting interactions of what is in the Caribbean, because a lot of people don't know this, but 78% of the organisms that exist in the Caribbean Sea is endemic, meaning they are only found in the
Oh,
Caribbean Sea. And
I
right, so
didn't
any
know that.
content that you should record and publish, it would be original and it would be very much unique, and
mm-hmm.
nobody, a foreign can say them ever see this because it's only found here, right? So the
Hmm.
Definitely.
potential and the opportunity that exists is again great. And this, yeah, so
Yeah. And that's one thing that I've noticed too, is that this one of the questions that I asked you, that we asked earlier, about what do you see could realistically change in Jamaica in the next 5 years. I asked this with some friends, and the common chord is that the focus mainly in the country is making money, making it fast, and making a lot of it fast, right? And that comes at the cost of the environment, etc. And I sat down and I said, that many of the things that we could be implemented easily in this country would be so profitable, and would be so profitable if we focused on those areas instead of trying to keep up with the Joneses. But if we focused on what is unique to our country and how we can tap into that, and make a name for our
that is
country,
true.
by tapping into those resources, we could be so much further ahead than
Amen
we
to
are
that.
right now. If we were supposed to
That
yeah.
sustainability is profitable.
Definitely, sustainability is very profitable. Hashtag, we should make that a hashtag and put it on a shirt.
Yes.
Sustainability is
Yeah, that
profitable.
is true.
And so the more that we drill it into people's minds that if things were sustainable, we would definitely make money off of it, and we'd be making money plus saving the
Yeah.
earth. And I mean, who can say no to
Yeah,
that?
that's
You
that's
know?
so true. Another I just want to highlight, do you guys know about Pelican Bar? Right.
Yeah, I've
So
seen
Yeah.
it
they
before.
are basically a part of the blue economy because they are a restaurant, a bar right in the middle of the ocean. So that's a good
Yeah.
example, yeah.
Exactly.
And that's yeah. And the thing is, that's unique, and that's a tourist
Right. And don't
attraction, and
ask if
people
them
will
now
go
make
there and
money,
spend money
like
to go there.
even in the pandemic,
Facts.
Pelican Bar is still as full as ever. So
Yeah.
yeah. the opportunity that is there, and it's just for people to realize that we understand that they want to make money, but they have to think outside of the box, and they have to think
Definitely.
sustainably, because you don't want to be doing anything that's going to destroy the earth. It's a debt trap. You don't want to go down that road.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, speaking of opportunities and thinking outside of the box, you mentioned earlier that you're only 23, and so am I, which is actually shocking to me because you've done so much in your 23 years. What's the secret? Like, what is the secret? Do you just look for opportunities in every small thing? What is it that we
Okay,
can do?
so I guess my tip would be apply for everything. So, there are a number of opportunities that would be advertised, and sometimes I actively seek out these opportunities. You can do research and just try to be a part of an organization, or try to volunteer, offer your
Mm,
services. I absolutely love doing things for free because I get the most out of it. I learn something. I've learned so much
mm,
growing up when I was in sixth form at the Queen's School, and I was so involved. I was doing almost everything. And people would look at it and say, "Boy, she must
Mm-hmm.
tired. She just full up her plate and all of these things." But I was not tired. I was learning so much, and it was just preparing me for the days to come, preparing me for the time when
yeah.
I would be leading something or an organization. And I'm nowhere where I want to be as yet. And so I'm still learning. I'm still in training mode. And so I'm still actively looking for even more opportunities, higher level opportunities where I can get hands-on experience and learn, collaborate with more people, and see how best it is that we can build something, build a legacy even. Because there's so much that I know that a lot of people don't know, and there's so much that they know that I don't know. So to get
Yeah.
exposed to that knowledge and that kind of thinking as well, because you'll be surprised how some people look at things differently, and you want to kind of adapt that kind of thinking, because for some in some ways it's refreshing, and in some ways it seems to solve the problem easy. I don't know. I've met somebody where And I've met a number of people where it is that you can present an issue to them, and the way how they dissected
Mm-hmm.
it,
Yeah.
that's the level that you want to be at. And so, in order for you to
Yeah.
get to that level, you just
Mm,
have to do what you need to do. And most of the times, I'm actually doing a lot of research. I do a lot of courses online. I use edX. You guys know about edX? I do. Right.
Girl, I know about Coursera,
Yes,
of
edX,
that. What
do
about?
a number of
Harvard
courses
X,
on those
Every X.
websites. I take
Mhm.
advantage of the free knowledge that is out there. Sometimes I'm auditing the courses
Mm,
because I don't have the money all the time to pay for a certificate. Um, so it's just to literally, and you have to have a plan for your life, because you don't want to be all over the place doing things that don't necessarily
mm,
line up. Sometimes I tend to do that, but it's always for a
mm,
Mm-hmm.
purpose. So for example, if I'm doing a project with boys rehabilitation outside of my scope, but I'm learning something new. And the aim is always to learn
right.
Mm-hmm.
how to maneuver different spaces, because that's important as a young professional for you to be able to do that. And yeah, talk to your lecturers as well, see what opportunities are out there, what projects you can work on. And I've gotten a lot of no's, because some it's not everybody like people who always asking to be a part of this. They're going to call you enough, they're going to say a number of things, but at the end of the day, you know where you are and you're comfortable where you are right now. So it is all for the best. It's all for the best.
I love
Yeah,
that.
I love it. So definitely one of the things that I've noticed about you is sometimes you do a lot of seminars, right? And one of the things that you are well known for is your resume writing seminars that help people, to retrain their
Yeah,
resumes and do stuff like that. With your experience doing, leadership roles, and doing actual jobs, especially in the area of sciences and life sciences, what do you think employees in life sciences jobs tend to look for when they're trying to hire a person
great
for a job?
question. So one of the things I'm just going to tackle an aspect before it leaves my head. So for the life science students who may be listening as well,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to help you a whole lot. When you're writing your resume,
I'm thinking.
please to list
Mhm.
out the skills that you've learned. Don't just say I have a degree from the Department of Life Sciences in environment biology and that's it. Please to note that the labs
Mm,
that you've been exposed to, so for example, my marine biology degree, I have done I've done assessments on different river systems for my labs, looking at the effect of different
mhm.
pollutants coming from the different farms, the different areas of the river, and stuff like that. We've done extensive field work for that. We've done an assessment in the Port Royal area, the Kingston Harbor, looking at the effect of pollution in the harbor, right? We've learned how to use
Right.
equipment such as the what do you call that? I don't even remember the names of the equipment. I only remember the Niskin bottles. But we've learned how to use a
Okay.
number
Mm-hmm.
of equipment, and we've also learned a number of
Right.
techniques, right? These are the techniques. You need
And
to
the
highlight these
skills that we
techniques
Mm-hmm.
that you learned. You need to highlight some of the experiments that you've participated, some of the field work that you've participated. This is your best selling point. Remember that people want to hire people
Mm-hmm.
mm,
who know what they're doing. And because you have a degree and you put your degree on your
Mm-hmm.
resume, that does not tell the potential employer the skill sets that you're coming with. And know that also if you do a
Mm-hmm.
degree in, for example, if you do a degree in marine biology, you can work in any area of science because you have gained laboratory experience and you've gained fieldwork experience. You can be an environmental scientist, you
right.
can be a pest ecologist, you can be a botanist, you can be the opportunities are wide because I'm sure in marine biology or in environmental biology or even in experimental biology you would have worked with plants and animals, and so you would have been exposed to both
Agree.
worlds. And if you need to do extra reading to fill that role that you are applying for, you can prepare to do that because you're a scientist, and scientists are flexible people. There are
Mm-hmm.
people with the highest level of
Mm-hmm.
transferable skills. They can be an accountant tomorrow if they want to, because they have the critical thinking abilities to do
Love that.
so, unless they didn't learn science.
That's
But
definitely true.
in this COVID time, when especially for us, we're not in the lab or we're not going out in the fields, can we still write all these skills? We never actually
Right. So
get some
you
of them.
know, so
So for some
Unfortunately.
persons,
that means what it is that you would have to basically look at the areas that you would have been exposed to. So say for example, you didn't necessarily go to a
Right.
lab, but you learned a particular technique, or you know about a particular theory, or you even write in your lab reports.
Okay.
Listen, I am actually recruiting now for eBiome research assistants, and the main requirement is
Okay.
just all enough to do is only just did have to write one lab already. All you do, the only requirement is that you would have had to written a lab report already. Once you know how to write a lab report, a very good lab
Mm-hmm.
report, you're hired. Because that's the kind
Okay.
of the projects that we're working on. We need people who can write good lab reports. Your literature review, you can analyze data, right? So you've done biometry, right? All
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
things that you've
everybody
learned in
has to do.
biometry. Oh
Yeah,
my God. I'm not saying to fill up your resume with all of the content
yeah.
that you've learned in your different courses, but highlight those high level skills.
Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
Learning
true.
SPSS, one of the major sellers right
Mm-hmm.
now. A lot of jobs in the in the field of science and technology requires that you have some level, or you know how to use SPSS, you know how to analyze data. Data analysis is one of the biggest areas, and it's one of the most well paid areas as well.
Yeah. So what was your undergraduate and some of your graduate, because you're
Yes,
still
I
pursuing your MPhil right now, right? What has your experience
am.
been like at the
I
University of the West Indies?
absolutely love the University of the West Indies. I think I've had my most hectic years of schooling here. I remember second and third year where I had no social life because it was all about going to school, doing
Mm.
Oh,
labs. During my lunchtime, I had no lunchtime because the lunchtime would have been used to label labs or to search for annotations for to prepare for the other half of the lab,
oh
Yeah.
well,
right?
memories,
So,
memories,
Memories.
whoa, my
memories.
experience, it was very interesting. I think my focus was mainly to get good grades and to get out. And I found that
Mm.
when I was in
Mm.
my third year, it was much easier to get good grades. I don't know why. Maybe the courses were easier. Um,
I think third year is
yeah,
a
in a
bit
sense, I
more
don't even
relaxed.
think it's about
I
being more
think,
relaxed,
you know,
because when the labs start to hit you, girl, ain't nothing relaxed about that.
Yeah, that's facts.
well then
I
again,
think
I'm
Yeah,
only 2 weeks
I think
in, so I could be wrong.
what's different with third year is that it challenges you to think higher at a higher level. And I absolutely love analyzing things. Like that's my biggest strength. So I did a number of out of faculty courses for my minor in international relations, and writing essays and analyzing the different components in the essay itself. That was my biggest strength. So when life sciences, no, when my third year became something where I'm writing more extensive lab reports. So like for example, for aquaculture, you had to talk about pricing. So a little business was in it because you have to understand how the aquaculture business is run, and to be able to write up your lab reports. And I had fun doing that. I absolutely love doing research and then analyzing how this international company can be matched with this Jamaican company. What are the similarities? What is different? Where the opportunities lie? What can the Jamaican company do so it can scale up its performance and stuff like that? So
Looking for
right. Yeah,
opportunities
because
everywhere.
I love doing that. I think that's why I did so well in third year. And second year was great for me as well.
mm-hmm.
The zoology courses that everybody feared. Um, yeah, I surprisingly did very well in those. Um, and biometry. Oh, yeah.
Wow,
So
you're
I
going right
think,
now.
wow, there's so much that we learn at the Department of Life Sciences, that anything at all, any job at all that you lay your eyes upon, may that job be yours, because you've been through it. You know how to prepare for what is to come, the
Mm.
unknown, and all of these things. Because these labs were scary sometimes. I know there are some lecturers that we would have feared as well because we know them love give a whole heap of work and them not understand say, oh, the lab is just 5 hours. But we were able to make it through.
Mm,
And given that you're in third year now, I see that you made it through second year. um, yeah,
thank
so
you.
Thankfully.
it's just
Thank you.
really now to keep the momentum up and always look for the different skills and what you can highlight and look at your strengths and your weaknesses. So there are areas that you would have done well in and areas that you would have done not so well in. You want to highlight the areas that you've done well in. So whenever it is that you get a job, they are looking and they're looking for an area to place you. When they look at your resume, they can say, all right, I see she have dissections on this. So I'm going to put her in the dissection department. You don't want to go put dissection and you were struggling to do your own dissections, right? So you want to put the areas that you're truly strong and you're truly competent in.
Good at, yeah.
Right. Love that. And we definitely will apply some of these gems that you've given us because there are a lot. We have got to put some of these quotes on t-shirts. Get good
Definitely.
grades, get out.
Yes.
Sustainability is profitable. All of
Yes,
these things.
all of that. So, Miss Leneka, where can we find you? Where can we get in contact with you? How do we get in
Oh, okay.
contact with
So we have a
eBiome?
website, www.e-biome.com. And you can also find us on Instagram at e_biome. That's BIOME. And you can find me on Instagram as well at Leneka Rhoden. And you can find me on Facebook, Leneka Tarika Rhoden. I just started a Twitter, so please follow my Twitter page at Leneka Rhoden. Yeah, and you can find eBiome on Facebook as well. E-biome. And yeah, that's how you can find us. Yeah, and you can always
Okay.
send an
We'll
email if you
definitely be
ever want
following
to
you. So,
work with us or anything. We're always open to that because we've been getting a number of projects recently and we really need the help. So biolifeja at
okay.
gmail.com. You can send an email to us. You can reach out to us via our website.
Oh,
Enter your details in the contact section and we will get in touch with you. So
So that's
yeah,
BiolifeJA.
biolifeja at gmail.com.
yep. Well, thank you for being here, Leneka. We had a really good episode. We learned a lot and we dropped a lot of gems. And I hope that all the listeners here feel motivated and feel like they have information that they can now take, use, and apply
Oh,
for the
thank
future.
you.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really hope that the listeners had a grand time and that they learned a lot. And I wish them the absolute best as they go forward and apply themselves in life.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Real Life Podcast. Follow us on our social media pages, Real Life Pod 876 on Twitter and the Real Life Podcast 876 on Instagram and Facebook. Remember, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Tune in next week where real life scientists tackle real life issues.